Hi everyone. Today I'm talking about non-intuitive INFJs. This might seem like a really weird topic for a video. Many INFJs that I work with have very high intuition, and they know they're very intuitive, and they use their intuition in everyday life all the time. So when I bring up non-intuitive INFJs, those types of INFJs tend to be shocked and say, oh, I didn't know there were INFJs out there that are non-intuitive or that don't use their intuition in everyday life like I do. There are actually quite a few non-intuitive INFJs. Now, when I say non-intuitive INFJs, you might jump to the conclusion of what's going on there? How can you be an INFJ but not be intuitive? Is it some sort of different strain of the INFJ? Is there some sort of different temperament within the temperament that is a non-intuitive INFJ? That's not what I mean at all when I say a non-intuitive INFJ. When I say non-intuitive INFJ, I mean an INFJ person who, for whatever reason, cannot access their intuition, or they can't trust their intuition, which a lot of the time can really be the same thing as not accessing it. And it's these people who I talk to all the time. They show up in my classes. I used to coach them in the past when I was doing coaching. A lot of people would come to me and say, I know I'm intuitive, and when I was younger, it seems like I was really in touch with that part of myself. I was able to get information about things that were going to happen. Maybe I even had a few premonitions. I always was able to read people very well. I knew what was going to happen in different situations. But as I got older, it feels like I started to block that part of myself off. And now, as an adult, it feels like I can't really get in touch with it at all. And I don't know how to do it. I so badly want to be in touch with my intuitive side. It feels like a craving. It feels like a really deep need. It feels like something that I need in my life, but I just can't quite get there. Or if I do get a little bit of intuition coming in, or what feels like intuition, I don't know if I can trust it. I'm really scared to trust it. I don't know if I can even go there. So what's happening a lot of the time with these non-intuitive INFJs, and I see this in almost every single case, is that the person was raised in a very logical household. Either they were raised with family members who were all non-intuitive, and not non-intuitive because they were suppressing it, although that can also happen, but sensors, right? So they had two sensor parents. They might have had two sensor parents and sensor siblings. So as they grew up, as they were a young child and started to develop, and they grew into a young adult, their reality of being intuitive was not ever reflected back to them. Their skill and their gift in accessing their intuition, feeling things out, sensing what was going to happen, being able to read people, that was never validated by their parents. That was never validated by anyone in their family or in their home environment. So they never got that feedback. They never got that mirroring of, yes, this is a gift, and yes, you're doing it right, and yes, this is real. They never got that validation. So from a young age, they shut it down. Now, if they grew up in a very logical household with a lot of sensors or a lot of thinkers, where everyone in the family was encouraged to be very linear, function according to cause and effect, always have some sort of logical argument that you could verbalize to explain anything you were doing, then that type of INFJ very early on will learn to really lean into their thinking side. And INFJs can be very strong thinkers, very good thinkers. So I don't want to say that's easy for us, but that's something we can do, is really lean into that logical thinking side, which we will do if we are forced to do. Of course, this is reinforced by school and workplaces and just the general culture all around us. But if we grew up with this mother or father who always said to us, I need to know why you think that, or why do you want to do something? If we said, I just feel like I have to do this, or I feel like this is true for me, or I'm getting this feeling that XYZ, and we had that parent who came back to us and couldn't trust us on the intuition, right? Couldn't trust us saying, I feel this way, I feel this is true, and started to interrogate us and say, but why? You need evidence, you need proof, you need to argue your case. And if you can't do that, right, if you can't present why this is true or why this is true for you or why you think it's true like you were in a court of law, as if you're a lawyer, then I'm going to dismiss it, or the family is going to dismiss it. You're not going to be taken seriously in the family. This really affects young INFJs, especially because when we're very young, it's extremely hard to explain our intuitions. It's hard when we're older too. INFJs who are in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond still a lot of the time will have trouble verbalizing why we feel like something is going to happen, why we feel like something is true or something is a certain way, or a person has a certain hidden motivation. That can be very difficult for us to put into words, much less an argument. And we don't like arguing, we don't like confrontation. So to put us on the spot and to say you have to argue your case and it has to make sense and you have to have these logical proofs, that really, really shuts us down. So what will happen in that case is we become afraid of our intuition because it comes up in us in childhood. It feels true, it feels real, but because it's not validated, and every time we bring it up in the family and say, hey, I think this thing is going to happen or this feels true and right for me, it feels like we're attacked. It feels like we're interrogated. You know, make your case, you're not making sense, that's not logical. We become afraid of this because it feels like it's causing conflict between us and our relationships with those we love or our caretakers. And for an INFJ, conflict that disrupts harmony is very, very damaging to us. It's not something that we can just glide through. It's not something we can just get over. It's something that really shuts us down and makes us withdraw back into our shell. So as a protective mechanism, something we'll do is start suppressing our intuition or ignoring our intuition. Because in our mind, it's doing nothing but causing problems, right? Like it keeps kind of knocking at the door, but every time we answer it, we have like a vague, shadowy feeling, and we can't really explain it to anyone else. We feel like we need to talk about it, but when we try to talk about it, then we feel like we're attacked, and we feel like it brings nothing but trouble. So what we start to do is to suppress or ignore our intuition on a routine basis. So what's the solution to this? When I have these INFJ adults coming to me and saying, I don't know what to do, I feel like I've been out of touch with my intuitive side for so long, and it feels horrible. I feel cut off from a very vital, fundamental part of myself, and I know I need that part, but I don't know how to get back in touch with it. So what do we do? The solution sounds counterintuitive, no pun intended, but it sounds counterintuitive. We have to let go of control. That's what's happening. The INFJ has gotten burned by their experience of trying to communicate their intuitions to other people in the past. Communicate our intuitions, not by the intuition itself. See, so we have to really acknowledge that connection there, that it's not our intuition that burned us. It's that our parents couldn't see it, our parents couldn't hear it, our family members couldn't see it. No one else could mirror that back to us, reflect that back to us, give us that feedback we needed, right? No one could validate us. So the communication part, that's what got mixed up for us, not the intuition itself. And what we did to deal with that is clamp down on the controls. Fine, then I'm never going to use this again. I'm going to suppress everything and I'm going to go straight into logic. And I'm going to become this logical person. And everything I say or everything I'm trying to communicate, I'll have a logical proof for it. I'll make a case for it like a lawyer. A lot of INFJs can be very good lawyers if pressed, even though we don't like it. But when you're in that state of everything has to be proven and I have to be certain of everything before I begin and I have to have everything nailed down, you go into a mode where you're controlling everything. This can be very, very bad for INFJs because we already have kind of super control tendencies and issues due to anxiety and our high sensitivity. And so usually with our intuition, when we're cut off from it, we're really clamped down on the controls of life. I want to know if something's going to be successful before I start. I want to know the outcome of everything. I want to know how everything's going to unfold. I'm a big planner. I want to be organized. I want to have all my ducks in a row. I don't ever want to feel unsafe. So it can be hard for us to take this first step of letting go of control. That's really what you need to do. The first step towards reconnecting with your intuition is letting go of control and understanding that you cannot predict success before it happens. A lot of times you just have to make the leap. A lot of times you have to practice trust. And you have to get comfortable with making mistakes. That's the other thing that happens when these people grew up in this very logical household where the parents were demanding everything has to make sense and you have to have a cohesive argument for anything you want to do. We're very logical in this household. When we grow up in that kind of environment, we get very afraid of making mistakes because we're usually shamed for the mistakes. In that kind of environment where the parents are demanding, logic and proofs and making your case, mistakes are not seen as a natural part of the journey. Mistakes are not usually seen as, well, that just comes with experimenting and that's okay. You fell down, get up. It was just a mistake. Now you have information. You can go on with that information. Instead, the child is usually shamed for not being perfect, not knowing ahead of time, not planning well enough. You should have known better, right? So a lot of shame comes in. And then as an adult, we have this really deep fear of making mistakes because we don't want to trigger that shame back from our childhood, but also currently within ourselves, because we have now adopted that inner parental voice that says, you are not allowed to be wrong, you are not allowed to make mistakes, you're not allowed to go off course, you have to have everything planned out, and you have to make your case in an argument. You have to know you're going to win before you even begin. So the way to work with your intuition is to actually move into the role of the true scientist. Not the scientist who always needs to win and always needs to be right and always needs to be logical, but the scientist who's willing to experiment. The scientist who says, I just have a hunch about this. I'm going to mix up these ingredients and I'm going to see what happens. Maybe there will be an explosion in the lab. Maybe something will fizzle over. Maybe nothing will happen, right? Maybe I'll make a big mess. I don't really know. I'm not going to know until I try it, until I mix these things together and I observe for myself. And I'm going to follow this hunch, right? So the true scientist is comfortable with mistakes. The true scientist actually wants the mistakes because that's how they gather information. So that's how you're going to work with your intuition. That's one of the really key ways that you're going to start to approach this issue of I can't access my intuition, I can't trust it, is starting to let go of control a little bit, and then also being willing to make mistakes and be comfortable with those mistakes and welcoming them as, great, I'm gathering information, I'm on the right track. I'm teaching a free class on this and so much more this coming Saturday, February 17th. It's called INFJ and INFP Intuition. And I'm going to be talking about all of this kinds of stuff, why we are disconnected from our intuition, how we can reconnect with our intuition, the unique ways that intuition shows up for the INFJ personality type and the INFP personality type, some of the common blocks people run into, some of the experiences that we may have in the real world, in real world relationships, when we really start bringing our intuition in and we start sharing our intuition with other people, how to communicate it with other people. I'm going to be covering so much on the topic of intuition. Like I said, this class is totally free. The only thing you need to do to get access is to register using the link below. If you cannot make it live, that's completely okay. You will get the recording. If you register for the class, you will automatically get the recording, the video replay, and you'll have lifetime access to that recording. This class is February 17th. It's 1 to 2:30 p.m. Eastern. I'd love to see you there live. I think it's going to be a really fun class. But like I said, please feel free to sign up, get the recording. You can view it later. You can use it later, get all the benefits. If you have any questions at all, you can email me, lauren@laurensapala.com, or you can drop a comment in the comment box below. And please also sign up for my newsletter. I tend to do lots of classes all the time on all sorts of different topics for INFJs and INFPs and INF life. So if you're interested in anything in this realm, intuition, creativity, writing, personality type, living your best life as an INFJ or an INFP, please sign up for my newsletter. I send out so much good information. All right, thanks so much, everyone, and I hope I see you in this free class.